by the people, for the people.
Well, we just came back from the theater, and I gotta say that I was a complete mess from this movie. We went and saw 12 Strong.
Very good film.
Which is the story of our first engagement in Afghanistan.
After 9/11.
Yes, that the Green Berets went in and had a mission to meet up with the Northern Alliance and then kind of be embedded with the Northern Alliance, calling in air support and clearing out a way to the capital.
Well, not the capital, but the Mazar-e Sharif, which was the main city that they were attempting to get to at that point in the battle.
And we saw Chris Hemsworth as the lead in it.
Captain Mitch Nelson.
And he, you know, he's been under fire, I think, a little bit if he's not playing Thor. People say that,
right,
you know, that this sucks.
That maybe he's not a very good actor.
And I thought this was a good movie.
He finally did something that was very good that is not Thor.
It started off with the Twin Towers being hit.
Well, it actually started before that. It started back in 1993, February of 93, when you remember, and I remember very well, early on in Bill Clinton's first term, when al-Qaida terrorists put off some truck bombs, basically, in the basement of the Twin Towers. Yeah. And at that time, I think 6 people died, but it was, you know, a big failure for al-Qaida because they thought that that was going to bring the towers down. It didn't. And then it kind of...
they just alluded to that. The movie really kind of...
Right, but that's what it started with because they're giving you kind of the background of al-Qaida in America. And not just in America, but then they went to the bombing of our U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania in August of 1998. Then they went to the bombing of the USS Cole in October of 2000. And that was one of the last things that happened under Bill Clinton's watch. And then it got to 9/11.
Right, so it was kind of the history of al-Qaida in America. And this team, all active military Green Berets, doing various things. They were a unit before, and then they were disbanded, and they were kind of split up doing different things, training, exercises, vacation. And they all see the Twin Towers happen. Right. And they all realize that, you know, we're going to be going back into this. And you saw an interesting dynamic, I think, with the film, and it was each one's wife. We saw a moment with them as they're telling their family, I'm going to war. Yeah. And how each one kind of reacted differently to it. Right. I thought it did a really good job showing the Northern Alliance. I learned something about the Northern Alliance, like how they interacted, kind of their idea.
I'll get to my point when you're done.
I also think that it was a great movie to see because this is why I love India. This is why I love the Jews. We are bound together by a common enemy. We are bound together by a common threat, a common evil that just doesn't want its right to exist. This isn't about some undetermined people who want an opportunity to have an area of their own to worship and live their lives. This is about an evil ideology that has been radicalized and weaponized and feeds on fear and death and you know, of the people they enslave. And we saw a little bit with Michael Pena's character on watching things, I think on YouTube or something, about they were stoning a woman who was pregnant and she wasn't married yet, and they were in... It
was training videos that they were watching, basically to help them understand...
the culture and what you're going
the enemy
into.
That they were up against. Because you have to understand that before this, certainly America had experience battling terrorists, but it was our military battling them in foreign lands. This was really our first time dealing with the scourge of Islamic terrorism on our land, in our land. And so even though there were people who were Green Berets, they weren't exactly, you know, totally in tune with what kind of enemy they were going to be encountering. The cruel barbarity of a group of people that their answer to schooling girls after the age of 8 is that you kill their teacher, who happened to be their mother. You kill her in front of her husband and her daughters. The idea of fighting an enemy who thinks it's okay to kill women and children is just barbaric. And so on our channel, from time to time, we get some comments from people, and they are Muslims who accuse us of hating Islam or hating Muslims. We don't hate Muslims, okay? And if you're a Muslim who thinks that Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, atheists, anybody of any other religion or lack thereof, if you think they have a right to do that, to worship how they see fit, you're not who we're talking about. If you are a Muslim who understands the evils of al-Qaida, ISIS, the Taliban, you're not who we're talking about. We are talking about an ideology that says it's acceptable to rape people because they don't belong to your religion. We're talking about an ideology that says if girls go to school, we need to firebomb their school. We're talking about an ideology that says women can't go outside the home without a full-on burqa. We're talking about an ideology that says if a woman is raped, she has to have 4 witnesses to prove it. Otherwise, you don't even believe her, and then she gets stoned or whipped. That's what we're talking about. When we talk about radical Islam and the Islam that we have an issue with, it's that. It's what was depicted in 12 Strong, the 19 hijackers that decided to kill 3,000 American citizens on 9/11. We're talking about that kind of Islam. The kind of Islam that we saw in Padmavat. And by the way, did I not mention to you when we were looking at the Taliban leader who was getting ready to kill the woman because she taught her girls how to spell giraffe and how to multiply 15 times 8? Did I not mention to you he looks exactly like Khilji from the 13th century? They look the same, they act the same, it's the same exact ideology. That's what we're talking about.
And you can look at different films from Padmavat to 12 Strong to
Lone Survivor.
Lone Survivor. I mean, this is an important film, and I think this is an important film that every Indian should see, because this is what is necessary. And I know India is on the right track with this, because you hear stories reported from Arnab Goswami about how the black cats are crossing over and taking out terrorists on their way to Kashmir. This is a kind of enemy that you can't reason with. This is the kind of enemy that you can't sit down and say, okay, listen, we need to come to some kind of agreement on how we're going to operate, how our two civilizations are going to operate, how our two ideologies are going to operate, because it is within their code to be
liars,
to be dishonorable.
Yeah.
It is viewed as honorable to trick your enemy.
Yeah.
And we saw it in the movie. There was a scene in the movie where these 12 have gotten 15,000. Hold on.
There'll be spoilers.
Yeah, 15,000 of them pinned down. 12 Americans got 15,000 of them pinned down through tactics.
And members of the Northern Alliance were with us.
And they realize, the Taliban realizes, oh, we're outflanked, let's go surrender, but it's a trap.
Yep.
And they know, like, the American code is they're waving white flags. We can't kill them. We got to search each person.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, someone's got a suicide vest on, and here we go.
Right.
And it was the same thing in Padmavat.
Right.
It was the same thing when the Hindu king is fighting the invader king, and he has him beat fair and square, and they shoot arrows in his back, and he says, even here there is no honor. And he said, no,
right.
we're here to win.
Right.
We're here to win.
So a couple of things that we want to point out. There are some spoilers, but this is a story that was classified for several years. Now it has been declassified. So some people know the story of the U.S. horse soldiers. And so I'm hoping that we're not giving too much away, but you can find this out, yourself by reading it online. So yes, they were teamed up with members of the Northern Alliance. This battle was expected to take 2 years. It took 3 weeks, because that's how America does things when she is given the opportunity to do things. When she's not shackled by rules of engagement that don't make sense, she's able to effectively carry out her duties. And so it took 3 weeks, and al-Qaida considers this their worst defeat at the hands of the Americans. Couple of other things. When 9/11 happened, I think it's fair to say that you, Jeremy, didn't watch the news very often. I have watched the news for a long time. I love history. I love being engaged and kept up on what's going on. And so I remember on September 9th watching the news, Fox News Channel, and they mentioned that the leader of the Northern Alliance had been assassinated by al-Qaida. I remember watching that. I had no idea what that was going to mean for our country just 2 days later. I remember at the time thinking, that region of the world, Afghanistan, it has been a nightmare for centuries. And I just remember thinking nothing's ever going to change over there. And then 2 days later, 9/11 happens. Now, for our friends who have been subscribers for a long time, you have probably heard me tell this story, so you'll have to forgive me. We have some new subscribers who have not heard this story before, and since we're doing a review of a movie about 9/11, our soldiers who were going over to Afghanistan after 9/11, I need to kind of share what happened in our home on 9/11. So we homeschooled our son, and he was in first grade. Which in America is the first year that you're in school. And so he was almost 6. It was 10 days before his 6th birthday. And my stepmom called us in the morning and said, "Do you have the news on?" And I didn't have it on yet at that point. And she said, a plane flew into one of the Twin Towers. And my very first thought, and I said it to her, was this is terrorism. And she said, "How do you know? You don't even have it on yet." And I said, "Because the Twin Towers are so tall, there's no way a commercial jetliner flies into them by mistake. There's just no way." So I turned it on, and of course, both of them were on fire and smoking, and it was clear that it was terrorism. And I was transfixed to the screen. My eyes were just glued to the screen, and I'm terrified. I'm horrified. I can't believe what I'm looking at, and then just trying to process, what does this mean? And I don't even realize that our son is sitting next to me on the end of the bed, and we're watching this. And he said, "I know what we're watching, Mommy." And I just looked at him and I said, "What are we watching?" And he said, "We're watching history." And it boggles my mind to this day when I think about this little boy who wasn't even quite 6 years old. He knew, looking at that this was history. He knew this was war. And he said, "I'm so glad that George W. Bush is our president."
Yes.
Because Al Gore could have been our president. And he said Al Gore would have been happy.
Yes.
And he wasn't even 6. And so,
from the mouth of babes.
Yeah. So it was war. And so for us watching this film today, it brought back some of those memories, but it also just, for me, as a very patriotic American, it made me so proud because our soldiers went and they did what they were supposed to do. It made me proud.
It was a very emotional movie.
Yeah.
I cried during the whole movie seeing this.
Yeah.
Stirring up the feelings of what happened on 9/11 very much within us that
Yeah.
we carry with us. You don't tend to think about it. But it was clear to me after watching this movie that it's just brooding underneath the center, waiting for something to stir it up. I think that this is an important film for our Indian friends to see, just as a reminder of why we are where we're at.
and why we're still in Afghanistan. I
Yeah,
wish that we had the type of rules of engagement that we had in World War II, because this would have been done a long time ago.
Yes, you just would have flattened Afghanistan.
And now when we think about still having some troops over there, I'm torn, because I want our troops to come home and be safe. And yet I know that our troops over there are the only people that are really keeping any innocent Afghan residents, Afghan citizens safe. Because people over there who are, the Afghan military, they're almost like soldiers for hire. They go to the highest bidder, and they swap sides all the time. And it's scary for the people who live there, that they have no hope. And so I'm torn. I want our soldiers to come home, but I know that they're protecting innocent people over there.
I think that this is an important movie for the Indians to see, and I think you're going to see this theater shift greatly towards your neighbors to the west. I was on a business trip, and you came up to see me, and I was watching the news, and your man, the retired Air Force Colonel McInerney.
Tom McInerney.
Yeah, McInerney was talking about what his intel is that he still has in touch there.
Some of his sources that he's still in touch with.
America's getting ready to turn on your neighbors to the west, because they see it as a clear supply line into Afghanistan. They see it as a clear, there's safe cover here for you, my brothers. We can, get you refreshed, get you regrouped, ready to go back out. And yes, we are America's ally. Those days are gone, dude.
Yeah.
And I think this is just a matter of time. I don't think Pakistan has nuclear weapons. I really don't. If they do, they don't know how to use them, or they're in such disarray. This country is such a joke. They would have sold that off as soon as they could to some bad character to use. And I just don't think they do, because India's constantly now fighting back. And the idea is you don't provoke a nuclear power, because you don't know what's going to happen. We went right in after Osama.
Yeah,
we went right in. There was no I hope they don't.
Yeah.
I just don't think they have it, and I think India does have it, because the things that I read and see and hear about when they were testing their weapons, it was like, my guess is Pakistan had some that we stored there on our behalf, and my guess is we've taken them back somewhere. This is get ready with the pressure from the commandos coming in from India. You're going to see all kinds of drones. You're going to see all kinds of weird things happening that are no doubt are going to be special forces coming through the Afghan border to clear this out, to cut off the back channel of supply. I mean, because we saw it in the movie.
Yeah.
They set up to flank them, and let's cut off their supplies and all this stuff. Listen, this isn't Obama. This isn't this isn't assalamu alaikum. We're all in this together. Let's watch the West burn. This is a different president. This is somebody who says, you know what? Let's do what we do. Let's clear this out.
A final note before we give our final grade. For those who accuse us of hating Muslims, I would tell you that if we hated Muslims, we wouldn't be concerned about protecting the lives of innocent Muslims in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Disengage the religion. Anybody who wants to do what the Taliban's doing, we would hate.
Yes.
We would be against. We would be on principle at war with.
Right.
Whether you hate, no. If it was white people, we would call it fascism.
Yeah.
Oh, we had a war over that, World War II.
Exactly.
It's not at all. It's about the character of the individual.
If you are a fan of or a supporter of the Taliban, ISIS, al-Qaida, any one of those radical terror groups, if you're a fan of them, that's what we're against.
Yes.
We're not against the innocent person.
No.
And I would also urge you to kind of look within and realize if you are okay with an ideology that does not want people to be educated, that's a problem. The only reason that someone in power does not want their citizens to be educated is because they understand the more educated you are, the less likely
Knowledge
you are
is
to
truly
be
power.
subjugated. That's the issue.
Knowledge is truly power.
Yeah.
Final grade?
I would give it an A-, and I only put the minus in there just because some of the acting wasn't all that good, but the cinematography was spectacular, the story was great, so A-.
I would give it just a solid A. The war scenes, the combat was outstanding.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple times that I verbally jumped or said something because of it.
Yep.
So I would give you say A-, I say A. I say this is required. This is required viewing for our Indian audience.
I hope that you're able to see it somewhere and that you will watch it.
You should see it.
Yeah.
You watch this movie, you will understand the American psyche.
Yeah.